As Ramsay Bolton once pointed out, the lives of the people in Westeros are rarely without challenges. We've seen our favorite Game of Thrones characters go through some serious trauma and drama on TV, but the pain doesn't always end when the cameras stop rolling. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the lives of some of your favorite cast members and learning how working on the show has changed them. From struggling with serious mental health issues to coping with over-the-top fans, you might be surprised what these stars have to deal with. One of the many things fans enjoy about Game of Thrones is how close we feel to the characters. There are some characters we love to hate and we hope something terrible is going to happen to them, mostly because in Game of Thrones, terrible things are constantly happening to everyone, but you get the idea. Right from the get-go, everyone hated the character Joffrey Baratheon. Is there anyone out there who didn't cheer when Tyrion Lannister smacked the grin off his smug face in season 1? But of course, we all know actor Jack Gleeson isn't responsible for the heinous actions committed by his character on screen. Well, some fans could probably use a reminder because Jack claims to have gotten some serious hate from fans in real life. It seems some people struggle to separate the actor from his character, and for a private person like Jack, this is hard to deal with. He's retired from acting and tries to keep a low profile, which is challenging due to his time in the spotlight on Game of Thrones. Jack was young when he got his start on the show, and another actor we watched grow up in front of our eyes was Maisie Williams. She plays the role of Arya Stark, and while she has no shortage of fans, she admits the work is often exhausting. We love seeing her rock her gorgeous new pink hair, but we're sad to learn the motivation behind it. Maisie admits she dyed her hair pink in order to reduce the chance of people offering her acting roles. While she's grateful to have played the part of Arya, she admits it's been an uphill battle. Growing up, we all want to find ourselves and develop our own sense of personal style, but as an actor, Maisie has been expected to be a blank slate. Now she's embracing her freedom and finding out who she is instead of worrying about who she's supposed to be. Some stars are already looking for their next big role as they say goodbye to Game of Thrones. Kit Harington has said that he's tired of playing the ultra-serious Jon Snow and would love to take on more comedic parts. Can you imagine the King in the North doing stand-up comedy or something? Unlike Kit, you might be surprised how many stars like Maisie are looking forward to an extended break from acting instead. One of these actors is Sophie Turner, who plays the role of Sansa Stark on Game of Thrones. While her character Sansa went through some unspeakable horrors over the course of the show, Sophie was also suffering greatly behind the scenes. She's admitted to struggling with depression from a young age and says that working on the show often exacerbated her feelings of self-loathing. She would fall down the rabbit hole of reading nasty online comments about herself, her acting ability, and her appearance. This led to issues with her self-esteem, and at times, she even thought about taking her own life. Why can't people just let Sophie be? Being a teenager is tough enough, but growing up in front of the camera is something else entirely. People would constantly pick apart every aspect of the way Sophie looked, from her skin to her weight. Sophie took all of them to heart, unfortunately, and came to believe she was a terrible actress. She would beg the costume department to tighten her corsets in order to appear thinner. Instead of reveling in her newfound fame, Sophie was more self-conscious than ever. And to make the situation even more tragic, Sophie often suffered alone. Her depression caused her to isolate herself from others. She found herself canceling plans with her friends and was reluctant to even leave the house. Instead, she stayed inside and ruminated on the cruel comments supposed fans made about her. Even something as simple as getting dressed to go outside would bring Sophie to tears, and she realized something had to change. Thankfully, she started getting regular therapy, but was initially embarrassed about reaching out for professional help. She tried to hide the therapy bills from her parents, but eventually was forced to come clean. In addition to attending therapy and taking medication, Sophie has finally opened up to her friends, family, and of course, her beloved Joe Jonas. According to Sophie, it was a brutal 5 or 6 years, but now she's in a much better place. She's finally able to love herself, but that doesn't mean she doesn't need a break. Following Game of Thrones, she plans on taking a break from acting for her own mental health. And of course, we imagine she's going to be enjoying married life. But if you're a fan of Sophie Turner, don't worry. While she's taking a break to recharge, she knows it's only a matter of time before she returns to the world of acting. Another actor who needed therapy while working on the series was Kit Harington. Although he has high hopes for his acting career, he also knows the toll it can take on a person. Some people struggle to make it in the industry, but Kit had a different problem. It's no secret that he portrays one of the most popular characters on the show, but the more well-liked he became, the more pressure Kit felt. On the outside, he looked like one of the luckiest people in the world, but inside he was plagued with feeling intense vulnerability. And knowing he should feel fortunate just made Kit feel guilty about the inner turmoil he was experiencing. Wait, doesn't this kind of sound like his plot on Game of Thrones? When the show's focus turned to his character, Kit felt the pressure and realized he was having serious trouble coping. During the 5th season of the show, his character famously met an untimely end. But don't worry, he got better in season 6. But during this time, everyone wanted to know what was going on with Kit Harington and if he would be returning to the show. Even though he had been on the show for quite some time, he hasn't gotten used to this level of attention from fans. Like his co-star Sophie Turner, Kit realized he had been isolating himself and realized he had to go make a change. He made a conscious effort to talk to more people and started attending therapy sessions. He learned to take pleasure in his work instead of obsessing over the show itself and its fans. Kit realized how unsafe he had been feeling, and it took a lot of work to make him feel secure again. Many actors on Game of Thrones have struggled with their mental health and their newfound fame, but Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys Targaryen, underwent some scary health issues that most people had no idea about. Fans watched her character gradually gain confidence and power as she grew into her role as a Khaleesi. Similarly, Emilia also felt as though she had been dropped into an unknown world where fantastic things were expected of her. She admits to having, quote, almost no professional experience before being cast in Game of Thrones. All of a sudden, the show was a hit and her character was a fan favorite. Emilia claims she was absolutely terrified by the sudden fame and being thrust into a business of which she was woefully ignorant. Following the 1st season of the show, Emilia started working with a personal trainer, but one exercise session went worse than she ever could have imagined. Suddenly, Emilia started throwing up, experiencing searing pain, and she knew that something terribly wrong was happening to her. She had suffered from a brain aneurysm so severe only 1/3 of the people survived the initial bleed. Yikes! Emilia had to undergo an intense 3-hour-long session of dangerous brain surgery, but it would only be the first of many. In the aftermath of her first surgery, the pain was often unbearable and Emilia struggled to recall her own name. It was such a nightmare that Emilia considered pulling the plug on more than one occasion. But mere weeks after being released from the hospital, it was back to work on season 2 of Game of Thrones. Not only was she still in tremendous pain, but she was living in constant fear of another aneurysm, which her doctors claimed was a real risk. While she confided in the producers, she didn't want anyone else to know what she was going through. Emilia claims she never missed a beat while on set, but afterward, she would often collapse with exhaustion. A second surgery left her with parts of her skull replaced with metal, and Emilia suffered from frequent and debilitating panic attacks. Throughout it all, she did her best to keep her condition quiet and didn't even go public about it until years later. She even helped to create a charity called Sane You, which helps people recovering from brain injuries and stroke. Emilia was suffering behind the scenes but was determined not to let it affect her performance on Game of Thrones, and honestly, it shows. But one of her co-stars was experiencing difficulties because of his on-screen character. Actor Daniel Portman plays the role of Podrick Payne, who was known for being something of a hit with the ladies. While many fans are content to appreciate his talents on screen, some cross the line in a major way. According to Daniel, some fans have actually reached out and grabbed at him over the years. He claims the culprits are primarily older women and he's often left feeling helpless. While he asks them not to touch him, they don't always respect his requests. He wishes they could separate fact from fiction and realize it's never okay to touch someone without their consent. But despite this, Daniel claims it's been an honor to portray Podrick and be a part of the show. If only all of his fans could master keeping their hands to themselves. One Game of Thrones star who has struggled both on and off set is Lena Headey, who plays the role of Cersei Lannister. Although she had a lead role in this major series, she often struggled with financial problems due to her bitter divorce. She claimed she could barely afford to feed herself or her young son at times. And although she thought she had found love again, that also went horribly wrong. Have you ever noticed that Bronn and Cersei almost never find themselves in the same room? That's because Jerome Flynn and Lena Headey used to date and apparently it didn't go well. Both stars stipulate in their contracts that they refuse to work with one another, although they have on some notable occasions. In addition to having to deal with her ex, Lena also struggles with anxiety and depression, often exacerbated by her time on the show. She's been open about her struggles on social media and encourages those who are suffering to get help. And Lena does a lot more than simply making social media posts. She also volunteers with an international rescue committee and became a mental health advocate. She's even traveled to Lesbos in order to work with refugees and do her best to see they get the help they need. The cast of Game of Thrones has been on a tremendous journey over the years to bring us one of the most popular shows of all all time. In fact, it's more than just a show, it's a cultural phenomenon at this point. It's easy to get caught up in all the swords and dragons, but let's not forget the very real people responsible for taking us on this epic journey. Some fans have trouble remembering that the cast is comprised of real people who deserve our respect. So what do you think about the journeys these actors have undertaken to bring this fantastic book series to life? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section and then click on that subscribe button for more videos here at The Taco. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next time.